Folks, we're going to do a quick rundown of Spec Map 1.0 for HHN 2024 at Universal Hollywood. And starting at the bottom left, and we'll be going clockwise here, we have a Cadillac symbol with the little film reel indicating that there is a IP in this one, and everybody seems to be in agreement that this is going to be a Ghostbusters one. You'll remember that the Cadillac logo, the hearse that's driven around by the Ghostbusters, actually is a Cadillac. And it looks like it's going to be in the UBE venue, which is where the 2019 Ghostbusters house was. We don't yet know whether or not this is going to be based on Frozen Empire, or if it's going to be based on the 35th anniversary, or to celebrate the 35th anniversary of Ghostbusters 2. Next up, in the Parisian space, we have a flower symbol, which a lot of people are thinking it might be the Alice in Wonderland house that John Murdy has been teasing on Twitter. He kind of mentioned it here and there, but me personally, I was kind of hoping maybe they would switch gears from Latin American folklore and maybe into like Chinese or Japanese folklore with that flower. It also could be something related to like fairies or pixies or something to that degree. However, it's most likely Alice in Wonderland. We're going to find out soon enough. The other thing that I have heard, and I'll mention it here, is that over on T-Pad, some people are thinking that that grub may actually be a caterpillar, and that's where Alice in Wonderland may go. Then just above that, we have in the mummy space another IP house, and this one has a quiet symbol or a silent symbol. And most people are in agreement that it is most potentially going to be Silent Hill, A Quiet Place, or maybe even Silence of the Lambs, which John Murdy has kind of hinted at. Maybe that's some pie-in-the-sky idea that he's hoping to be able to get that property, or maybe Universal actually secured those rights. That would be a big deal because that would be shared between Orlando and Hollywood if they did get Silence of the Lambs. Me, I'm personally leaning towards Silent Hill because there is a remake of a game coming out which happened with Last of Us. It is a PlayStation exclusive, which Last of Us is as well, and there is a sequel movie coming out for Silent Hill, which, if you remember, the Last of Us TV show had come out. So I feel like in terms of pop culture and popularity, it's likely that Silent Hill is going to fit the same bill that Last of Us did, and is why I'm leaning that way. The other thing that kind of supports that is, unfortunately, A Quiet Place was produced by Paramount, which doesn't have any sort of history in Horror Nights or with Universal working with them. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I went back as far as 2012 and could not find an example of where Paramount had any of its properties represented at HHN. Up in the top right corner, we have Unknown IP at Soundstage 15. This one, a lot of people are suggesting may be where Blumhouse gets represented at the event other than the Blumhouse experience. A lot of people are suggesting that it may be split into 2 or 3 different movies, one of them most likely being a brief like pizzeria, Five Nights at Freddy's type of portion to it, probably starting with it as the entrance. Then there's a number of movies, and it's hard to narrow down which ones they could be, but because of the popularity of Five Nights at Freddy's, a lot of people are suggesting that this is likely to be part of the event. However, we have also heard that the owner of the rights and the maker of the video games is kind of notoriously difficult to work with in terms of securing rights because of how he wants to have his property represented. So him being super hands-on with stuff like that and very critical of how things are represented and showcased makes me think that Five Nights at Freddy's is still very much up in the air, even though it would go over very, very well. It wouldn't do well as a full house. I don't think that Universal would put up the money for all those costumes like the way they did with Killer Clowns. They didn't really get their money's worth out of Killer Clowns, in my opinion, even though those costumes were immaculate. Moving on over to Soundstage 22, the symbol here and film reel, it's fangs with a skull, and a lot of people immediately think Dracula. However, when you think of Dracula or any sort of vampires, we're thinking so many possibilities here. Some people have gone so far as to suggest Lost Boys, Fright Night, Abigail, Nosferatu, and The Last Voyage of Demeter. There's so many possibilities right now, and everyone's pretty convinced that it's going to be a vampire-related house. I wouldn't be surprised if at some point that it's just nothing to do with vampires whatsoever, and I also wouldn't be surprised if it was something as simple as like Abigail. Then over on the T-Pad, we have this grub, which a lot of people are saying is going to be an exterminator's house, in which Larry Larva gets his own house to play in, and honestly, I would be so here for it. Like, that would be amazing. And like I said earlier, it may also be a caterpillar. It may be a bit of a misdirect here by Horror Night Nightmares, and this could be the Alice in Wonderland house, and the Parisian one could be something completely different. Now, unfortunately for the tram, there's no hint here. We do know that there's going to be a terror tram, but there's no suggestion on which way they might be going with like a featured character or anything like that, how they might change that space. I know that a lot of work was done for the tram for its anniversary. Don't know how that might relate to the terror tram though. Then all the way out at the H lot, the first H lot tent, we have sort of a generic slasher knife, and unfortunately a lot of people are suggesting that maybe Chucky may come back for a second year. And the only reason I think that might be a possibility is because a lot of budget went into those puppets and animatronics that are throughout the house. A lot of people did enjoy that house. I got a few terrible runs on it, and just because of timing, I would say. Like, I went through the entire like ending where a lot of animatronics are and didn't actually get to see anything except by turning around and seeing the giant Chucky. Some of the other things that people have kind of rattled off that I've seen a few times: The Strangers, Terrifier, Thanksgiving, and the Fear Street trilogy. I don't think they're going to do any sort of IP that's not linked with Orlando as well, just because of the marketing that usually has behind it. They usually do a lot of unified marketing with the big IPs and don't really do anything outside of that nowadays. And that also would include some of the merchandise. Then for the last house at H Lot Tent 2, we have this crescent moon with a few stars around it. This is an IP house. A lot of people have pointed out that Nightmare on Elm Street utilized a very similar symbol, a house that happened 10 plus years ago. It utilized the same one. I don't know how some of these people remember these things, but thank goodness for them, because it also happens to be the 40th anniversary of the first Nightmare on Elm Street. So what's likely to happen if Universal has been able to secure the rights here, because I know they've kind of been in a weird place between Freddy and Jason movie rights and the IP rights in general. If Universal was able to get those rights, the licensing to actually be able to do a house, that is going to be so good. So that's all the houses. The scare zones we don't know too much about, unfortunately, but it looks like there's going to be the three that we've come to kind of expect. The Death Eaters are going to return, and I think that should never go away as long as Hogsmeade is there. It also looks like the Blumhouse experience is going to be making a return. I really hope that they're going to do a little bit more to make that a fuller experience, because so far, from what I remember last year, everybody just kind of jammed in, gawked at the Five Nights at Freddy's costumes, and then watched the Megan's dance. So hopefully the video clips that they showed during the Blumhouse experience are going to be a little more exciting, maybe tell more of a story rather than be kind of like a movie reel of Blumhouse movies. Hey, come check these out, because it felt like I was being advertised to. Then the last show, it looks like it's going to be over at the Waterworld Arena. Last year, you'll remember, they did The Purge there. It was basically another stunt show. However, the unique thing to point out is that this is also the same symbol that's over at Orlando, but not happening on a water stage. It is actually in their Animal Actors arena. So you have something that's heavily rumored to be a comedy duo type of show, and needs to be able to translate between the Waterworld area and the Animal Actors area, which I can't quite picture what would fit the bill for both of these. Because of the castle symbol, most people are leaning towards Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. I don't know how relevant they are in pop culture anymore, but I think it could fit that sort of Bill and Ted type of spirit and energy. Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, or have any other suggestions for what might be coming to HHN 2024 at Universal Hollywood. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and hopefully in the fog, or for Spec Map 2. Also, if you're interested in catching up on the Spec Map 1 for HHN Orlando, you can click the link over here.